is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, thank you so much for making us a part of your Friday. As with me as always, and might I add, it's a pleasure to have him with me as always. Co-host DaMichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal. Mr. Cole, how are you doing, sir?
Shawn, I'm doing great. I can't complain on this end. But one thing I'm going to complain about, Shawn, is I had a couple people listen to that last episode, and they talked about how you talked about beating me down in basketball and things like that. And people know I got skills. So you're gonna make me pull out some of the video and things like that because you got people thinking you can beat me down, Shawn.
I said that.
That's what you got them thinking.
I would never say something like that and not be telling the truth. Michael, here's the thing, though. If you feel, because instead of dropping dimes, the only thing that you would ever be dropping is tears. If we played one-on-one, my tissue box is a little bit out of reach right now. But here's the overall thing for me to let you know. I understand that these people support your skills. I understand that you can brag about these skills all you want to, but life sometimes requires you to put down the Xbox controller and actually step outside. And when you did that, all that you would be doing is stepping into misery if you ever played me. We'll put it to the test one of these days, Michael.
Son, I'm looking forward to it because
I absolutely am as well. All joking aside, one-on-one skills that I have and DaMichael Cole doesn't. All that aside, welcome to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Once again, my name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSCC on Twitter. Mr. DaMichael Cole over at DaMichael C. The show at Locked On Grizz. Free on all podcast platforms right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button below. Lets us know you enjoy the show, and thank you for all the support. So, DaMichael, it is Friday, game day, and it's 1 versus 2 tonight. The Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies, the two best teams in the NBA. And of all the words that seem appropriate to define tonight, soreness. Soreness. We'll get to that joke in a little bit later on in the show. But before we do, DaMichael, let's talk about this week. Listen, first ever Southwest Division championship. First, time we've gotten the number 2 seed, I believe. Well, it's the latest time we've got it. My whole point is a bunch of accolades. But one thing that we didn't talk about off the court that ESPN did discuss is the fact that the Grizzlies have been named, in terms of the next 3 years, the most likely team to be a sustainable winner when it comes to many things: management, coaching, players, core, draft, all that different stuff. The accolades just keep on coming. But Michael, when you see that type of recognition, how does it make you feel? What stands out to you when you see that recognition?
It's more than anything, it's a hand clap for this organization, top to bottom, for all the work that they've done. Because when ESPN putting together these lists of these top young cores, this is basically saying you drafted well, you hit the marginal gains. This is what happens when you trade, Javon Carter. No disrespect to Javon Carter, but you trade Javon Carter and you get what's the hottest shooter in the NBA right now in DeAnthony Melton. Or you get Desmond Bane with the last pick in the first round, and now you have a starting shooting guard who is basically your primary scorer right now with John Morant out in only his second season, by the way. Or, you hit on the top picks as well. You get, John Morant, you get Jaren Jackson Jr., 2 starters, and then you also get another lottery pick, Zaire Williams, who was a little bit further down. But you remember, Shawn, that was a pick with some risk. A lot of people were on the fence of how that would work out. Well, yeah, there we go. The man himself. And look, Zaire started some games. He started off slow. He's worked his way up. But I mean, it's just this front office. It's a clap for the work that they've done. And Shawn, you look around the NBA, there are some legit young cores. I mean, look no further than, the Suns and the Hawks, with the great things that those young cores did when they made those runs in the playoffs last season. You got the Suns, you got the Hawks, you got the Pelicans as one who people are keeping an eye on, as thinking of them making a run sometime soon. You also have even a team like the Pacers, who just made a trade for Halliburton, and you got Chris Duarte over there, who was their nice pick that they just got. There are a lot of nice young cores out there. The Thunder, they're building something special. The Rockets, we saw when they beat the Grizzlies, how the potential of that young core. For ESPN to say that one in Memphis, that is the top young core. The Grizzlies are really hitting on some things, Shawn.
Absolutely. And the thing that I'll tell you is this, is that you said a lot of those young cores around the NBA, and very astute of you to name a lot of those young cores. But two things stand out about the Grizzlies, DaMichael, as you mentioned, top to bottom. For one, it's the fact that while our young core is as talented as it is, it's the fact that a significant part of it is full of players, mainly the depth, but full of players who have reached ceilings immediately many didn't think that they would. And that same reason why they're doing it is even stronger now in the coaching staff in the front office, because they know that their methods work. But the other big thing is this: everyone is bought in, and they're bought in because of each other. From the star player in John Morant to one of the more talented head coaches in the NBA, a top 5 coach right now in Taylor Jenkins, to a top 5 exec in Zach Kleiman. Kleiman, Jenkins, Ja are all on the same page. Obviously, you have to have that in a small market, but that is the one consistent thing for this Grizzlies franchise that sets it apart from a lot of these younger cores that you mentioned over the past few years. And that's why the Grizzlies have kept on ascending while others have kind of been scattered with their results. Those are two big reasons I feel that support, just having the talent that the Grizzlies do.
Yeah, and they're taking those jumps. Desmond Bane from year 1 to year 2 jump. John Morant year 1, year 2 to year 3. I mean, his year 2 to 3 jump is why a lot of people have John Morant as a favorite for most improved. Whereas I feel locally, we don't hear John Morant for most improved as a thing, but nationally, he's on all of those sports books and things like that as a favorite for the most improved player award. So your entire backcourt has really improved drastically. Then you look at, guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., who've made certain changes. We look at the fouls, for example. Still a problem at times, yes, but his foul rate is the lowest in his career right now. So there's that. DeAnthony Melton, just his improvements throughout the season. A lot of these young guys have really taken their games to another level. And people look at the Grizzlies and they say, how can a team get so much better with pretty much the same guys? Well, when your roster is made up of so many young players, that internal growth is almost the equivalent of a free agent acquisition. And that's what's happening.
When you say jump, DaMichael, how are we going to define the jump? Are we going to define my 38-inch vertical, or are we going to define your 5.8-inch vertical? People, congratulations to DaMichael. He actually cleared his first single piece of paper on a jump the other day. It was amazing to see, quite amazing. But the thing that I'll also say is this, is that besides the reasons why the Grizzlies were listed as number 1 on ESPN, the other thing that stands out is that their owner, Robert Pera, was also featured. Someone that we have heard over the past year has become one of the NBA's richest owners. Now, I shine the spotlight or shift the discussion to him because the spotlight is going to specifically start to shine brighter on Robert Pera when it comes to knowing just how bought in he is. And makes no mistake, I think that he's bought in. He doesn't have to be in the spotlight. He doesn't have to be in the public eye. We know he prefers to not be there. But the thing that stands out to me is it comes down to every one of these contending franchises, especially in small markets. How bought in, how committed is the owner to really making this thing last? And that stands out to me. That's going to become a big question. To what extent is Robert Pera willing to invest in what's going on to really make it last?
Yeah, that's the question. And, based on the story on ESPN, Shawn, it sounds like he's willing to pay the big bucks. I mean, he has them. There's no one over here is debating that $15 billion pocket that Pera has. It's just, how invested is he into the Memphis Grizzlies? How much does he want to invest in the Memphis Grizzlies? Because you just mentioned it. And, we just seen Jaren Jackson, get a nice contract. John Morant, if he makes All NBA, which he's going to make All NBA. So when John Morant makes All NBA, his contract will look something like 5 years, possibly $217 million. That's more than $40 million per year. That's the money John Wall, Russell Westbrook, that's silly money. He deserves it, but you're going to have to pay him. And then you know who's going to be up for an extension that next season right after him? It's going to be Desmond Bane. You can't let Desmond Bane go. Oh, you know who's playing really well right now? It's DeAnthony Melton. He's going to come around. So the books are coming. Brandon Clark as well. Brandon Clark's time is coming. None of those guys are max guys, so to say, but it adds up. It adds up. The Grizzlies, in order to pay most of these guys, we just talked about the depth. And that, I actually wrote a story on that in the commercial appeal where I talked about Tyus Jones in particular, just saying that the price is going up as he plays better and better and better. And the Grizzlies will find themselves in the luxury tax. We're not too familiar with the Grizzlies being in the luxury tax. It's new. It's going to be, new territory. But that's because this team has developed so much depth, and it's going to come down to how much Robert Pera wants to spend. To see that story that ESPN wrote, it sounds like he's willing to open up that pocketbook. And if he does that, Shawn, I'm not saying you got a dynasty on your hands, but I'm going to say this team's going to be around a while for sure.
And I have not had the pleasure of listening to it as of yet, but I know that you recently were on the Longview podcast with a very good friend of ours from Grizzly Bear Blues, Mr. Parker Fleming. Shout out to Parker. But the reason I mentioned that is because, you're right. We're going to start seeing some contracts, and it's not even the Grizzlies, right? The reason I mentioned that podcast, I was talking with Parker the other day, and this is completely his observation, and I think it's a wonderful one. When it comes to Desmond Bane and his potential contracts, you're going to look at what players possibly comparable to him get this summer, such as a Tyler Hero. But the other thing is this, is that you look at what players have gotten in recent years. You look at the Derek Whites, you look at the Luke Kennards, you look at, the Lonzo Balls. These players getting the 4-year, $60 to $80 million deals. Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane both have put together resumes over the past few years that make them worth that type of commitment. I'm going to be honest with you. More than likely, you're going to have to choose between one or the other, and I think we all know who would be the preference. But the point is, some tough decisions are going to have to be made as well, and that is something that you hope all this continuity and being bought in together will be able to survive. I think it will, but tough decisions are coming.
Right, and then one more thing, too, like, sometimes it's not even just about the money. It's the opportunity. I think, for example, James Harden comes to mind, even though it was about the money for sure. There was some money. The Thunder just, they got strapped for cash a little bit. But at the end of the day, James Harden was a starter. I mean, he was playing six-man, but James Harden was a starter in this league at that point of his career. And it's happened with a lot of other players, Reggie Jackson with the Thunder as well. He wanted to start. The Thunder could pay him, but they couldn't give him a starting spot. And he went to Detroit where he could get a starting spot. Opportunity is another thing that, when you build this type of depth, it's good when you have controllable contracts and things like that. But at some point comes a time, for example, a guy like Brandon Clark, we'll see, where his career goes from here. But who knows? Brandon Clark may say, man, I'm averaging more than 10 points off the bench and I'm playing less than 25 minutes. I feel like if I went somewhere else and played 30 minutes, I could be a double-double guy and set myself up for a potential $25 million contract. I'm holding myself back in Memphis. He could look at himself like that. There could be people in his ears saying things like that. Same thing with a guy like DeAnthony Melton. You just never know. We've seen that around the league where guys, they love their role. They love the team. They love the chemistry. You don't see those guys having chemistry problems, but at the end of the day, Shawn, they want bigger opportunities. That could be a thing. I mean, I think of Tyus Jones. It's like right now, Tyus Jones, Shawn, I looked at the numbers when I wrote the story in the commercial appeal. His offensive rating, some of the guys his offensive rating is higher than. We're talking Luka Doncic as a starter, that is. His offensive rating as a starter is higher than Luka Doncic. It's higher than Trae Young's. And I believe it's higher than Kyrie Irving's as a starter. So we're talking 21-game sample size here. His defensive rating as a starter is better than Patrick Beverley's, DeJounte Murray's, and Marcus Smart. 21-game sample size. And I made note of that in my story. Like, yeah, small sample size for sure. But the point is, there's a GM out there that's going to see those numbers with Tyus Jones and may say, it's worth the shot. We don't have to commit to a 5-year deal. Give him 2 years and throw, extra $5 million, on top of it. Give him $30 million. And the Grizzlies may say, oh, that's how much they're going to pay you. We can match that. But the difference, a starting spot versus backing up John Morant, so you have to weigh those things too. I think a lot of it, with Robert Pera, it's good to see that he's going to open up those pocketbooks, but it's going to be interesting to see how these players, accept their roles right now and over the course of time.
Coach DaMichael brought up just a great point, but the most startling one is the fact that he just admitted if it was up to him to start a franchise, he would pick Tyus Jones over Luka Doncic or Trae Young. I mean, I'm not responsible for his
Shawn,
opinion.
the numbers back it up.
Hey, DaMichael's right 95% of the time. Hopefully, we'll get past the 5% here in the next few minutes. Before we do that, I want to remind you, obviously, when it comes to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, the thing is that we cover the Grizzlies, right? But the Locked On Podcast Network covers all realms of sports. And the great thing is that if you love betting and wagering on sports, try to check out Locked On Podcast more often. Obviously, with the Locked On Grizzlies, but regardless of what team you love, check it out. The more you know about the teams that you cheer for, hey, they may be easier to bet and wager on, and there's no better place or easier place. The fastest and easiest way for you to bet on sports is betonline.net. Head to the website, either your mobile device, or I don't even know what I just said, via your mobile device or your laptop today. Check out betonline.net. Basketball, football, baseball's coming up, Final Four, pro basketball, UFC boxing, all that you could ever enjoy. It's all in one place for you to bet and wager on. They even have Vegas casino games. So the next time you're ready to wager and bet on sports, check out betonline.net. I cannot speak. betonline.net today. Can't thank you enough for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day, but obviously check out the Locked On College Podcast Network. The Final Four is around, the NFL draft's right around the corner. Whatever your favorite college sports team is, check out your favorite Locked On Podcast, college podcast. It's your second listen of the day after Locked On Grizzlies. So, DaMichael, we know that the Grizzlies are the number 2 seed. But after that, let's look at the West standings right now, because they certainly have changed as of last night. The Mavericks are actually now the 3rd seed, and the Warriors are the 4th seed. The Nuggets, who just a few weeks ago were the 7th seed, they're now 5th. The Jazz are 6th, and the Timberwolves are 7th. Now, there's 5 games separating 3rd and 7th, but the Mavericks may surpass the Warriors for good with the injuries. But, of course, when it comes to the Grizzlies, their focus is not, as of right now, on that 3 through 6 spot. Their focus is in the 7th and 8th spot when it comes to the Western Conference playoffs and, of course, the play-in. And right now, the Timberwolves are 2.5 games behind the Jazz. The Clippers are 3.5 games up on the Pelicans. So it seems like the fight for that 7th seed is going to be the Timberwolves and the Clippers. And then, of course, the loser of that has to play the winner of 9-10. So we're looking at this play-in tournament. We're not the play-in tournament participant this year. We're looking to play the play-in tournament winner. DaMichael, when you look at that group, when you look at the Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Pelicans, what's your thoughts? What are you thinking?
First of all, Shawn, what a difference a year makes, right? Last year, the Grizzlies are fighting for their lives to get in, and now they're afforded to, sit back a little bit, watch some basketball, see what these teams bring to the table, and figure out who you're going to play. But when I think of Yeah. You sit back and you rub your thigh soreness and massage your knee soreness and rub your hand soreness but the Grizzlies are in a great spot, and with these teams that they could possibly play, which are the Clippers and the Timberwolves. Look, I'm gonna say it: the 3-game difference between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets with 5 to play. The Timberwolves are going to be the 7th seed. That's where I'm at. Barring some, catastrophic change, the Timberwolves are going to be the 7th. The Clippers are firmly in the 8th seed. The Clippers are going to be the 8th seed. Those are the 2 teams. The Grizzlies will either play Minnesota or they'll either play the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers just got Paul George back. They look a lot better. Won their first game, come back against Utah. They actually lost this most recent game in overtime against the Bulls. Had a lead on the Bulls as well. I think Paul George did not play as well in that game. Been trying to watch the Clippers closely, but when I see those teams, I think at the end of the day, you're going to be playing a good basketball team. This is a Clippers team who went 6 games with these guys because Kawhi didn't play in that series. They went 6 games with the Suns last year in the Western Conference Finals. Really tough series. Even in those losses, they went wire to wire with the Suns. And Timberwolves team lost a couple games in a row now, but for the most part, since the All-Star break, they've been one of the better teams in the Western Conference. D'Angelo Russell's playing really well. Patrick Beverley is doing Patrick Beverley things. Anthony Edwards up and down, but his up is a lot better than a lot of guys' is up. Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, we just saw him hit 60 points. I mean, he has been one of the best bigs in the league lately. And then Jared Vanderbilt. That's their key piece right there. So the Timberwolves, interesting matchup. Clippers, interesting matchup. Either way it goes, they're playing a good team. I think, I'm leaning towards, a matchup with the Timberwolves actually, because with the Clippers, you get that Ty Lue mind. And we've seen Ty Lue, he makes those adjustments like he did, and like he did in that Utah Jazz series. He messed them up when the Jazz were the 1 seed, and he made those adjustments, and they went at Gobert, and they got Utah out of there. Even you go back to before that, 2016 against the Warriors, Cleveland made some real good adjustments. Ty Lue is known as one of those guys. He can mess some things up, make a game funky for you, and really throw you off. But Timberwolves, no playoff experience pretty much from that group. I believe. Jimmy Butler took them to the playoffs one year amid his whole practice tirade. But outside of that, I think either way it goes, you're playing a tough team. But the Grizzlies, they should be comfortably favored either way.
And so you'll go Timberwolves. And the thing is that you bring up a good point. They're like a playoff experience. They're up and down nature as well. But I'm going to tell you this. This is a very tough matchup for the Grizzlies. They consistently are. And I'm not afraid of the Timberwolves. If you want to give me the Timberwolves, that's perfectly fine. But my pick is the Clippers. And the reason why that is, I think we're going to have an easier time imposing what we do well against the Clippers than we do the Timberwolves. That's the reason why we won it. And we know that we can do that and still withstand a Paul George big game like we saw at the very first of the year. We know we can do that to win these games. The key factor in all of this, though, is Kawhi Leonard. And you have to think that when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, who we've heard has been on road trips, not a lot of news out there right now, but you would have to think that if Kawhi Leonard's, even thinking about coming back, okay, the Clippers won the 7th seed. And he's sitting here thinking this is to take nothing away from the Grizzlies, but Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have to feel as if them as a duo, they would have a good chance in the first round series against the Grizzlies. Absolutely. That's just being the honest truth. So if Kawhi Leonard comes back, okay, at that point, give me the Timberwolves. But if you're talking about Paul George, and even if Norman Powell comes back, I'll take the Clippers because I just think that we would have a better opportunity of imposing our will on them consistently than we would the Timberwolves. And I know that Ty Lue is a very good coach. I still think that Taylor Jenkins could hold his own, especially with the more talented roster sans without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, and Taylor Jenkins, he's a mastermind. He definitely held his own against Greg Popovich the other day. We watched that game, Shawn. Greg Popovich threw some things at him. He threw. I haven't seen a team run boxing one on Desmond Bane since I've been here, at least. And I thought that was a funky look. They ran some traps. They ran all these different defensive coverages at the Grizzlies, and it took Taylor Jenkins some time to adjust. He did. They basically started playing 4-on-4 and just threw Desmond Bane out of the way. But, Ty Lue is capable of doing those type things and making those type of runs. And it's not just Ty Lue. They have battle-tested guys. Reggie Jackson, you remember him in the postseason last year. That dude was incredible.
He's killed the Grizzlies in the past. He's done very well against the Grizzlies in the past.
He has. Robert Covington, who that other pickup, I had him. He was the perfect fit for me at the trade deadline for the Grizzlies. You talk about those stocks guys, steals, blocks, gets a lot of those deflections, can shoot the 3 ball. That's Robert Covington. Perfect playoff guy. He's that guy. He's a chess match type guy. He's a weapon that they have. Zubac, very strong guy inside, who, Steven Adams is probably the strongest center. Zubac is one of those guys who he kind of reminds me in a way of a younger Jonas Valanciunas. Not, the Jonas that the Grizzlies saw. I'm talking Raptors Jonas Valanciunas, because he's very strong inside. And he's one move to the basket. So I'm going with the Clippers with or without Kawhi. With Kawhi, oh boy, let's you talk about bad luck. That's bad luck. But no Kawhi, which is what I expect at this point, because we just haven't heard much. I'm not expecting them to have Kawhi. And the Grizzlies, like you said, yes, they do offset a lot of those things. But I think in a series where with a young Timberwolves team against a young, Grizzlies team, I think the Grizzlies, with Taylor Jenkins, Chris Finch, I think the Grizzlies have a coaching advantage there. All credit, no discredit to the things that Chris is doing over there with that Timberwolves group. But everything that the Timberwolves are good at, the Grizzlies are a little bit better at. The Timberwolves are known as a team that likes to get out in transition. Well, guess what? Grizzlies are number one in fast break points. What about the Timberwolves being like one of the top stocks teams in the NBA, steals and blocks? Well, you know who leads the NBA in that same category? The Grizzlies. So a lot of those things where the Timberwolves try to make their name and their identity. I actually saw someone say this, Shawn. I saw someone on social media say that the Timberwolves were kind of like a great value version of the Grizzlies. And I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say, but I will say this. I thought it was funny, Shawn.
Great value Grizzlies. GVG. We can make that happen. Yeah. Grit versus grind. We'll see if we can make it happen. But hey, listen. So the Suns are coming to town to face the Grizzlies. Spectacular, stupendous, scintillating. Any word that can emphatically describe the excitement that comes with the 1 and 2 teams in the NBA facing each other that begins with the letter S. You have to settle for soreness. Soreness. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but before we do, listen, if you are someone that, hey, kind of you're starting today, maybe you've got a little soreness to start your day. You're trying to get the boost going, all this different stuff. You got a big school project coming up, maybe, a big work project, maybe you just getting out of bed is a big project, whatever it may be. Listen, the best thing to do is to have Built Bar. In the morning for breakfast, in the afternoon for snacks, whatever you want to enjoy. You can get Built Bars. You can get Built Puffs. You can get a lot of different things at Built.com. But the great thing about it is you have over 18 different flavors to choose from. And if you put in the promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your next order from Built Bar. Check out Built.com today to pick out your favorite Built Bar. Built.com, put in the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order from Built Bar. Listen, next week on the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, me and DaMichael are going to have plenty to talk about. The Grizzlies going through a pretty tough stretch. Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out for the rest of the regular season? When might we get an idea of, it's still a week left, but when might we get an idea of potentially seeing Ja return to get up a little bit of an amp up for further playoffs? All that and much more on next week's edition of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. So listen, we all joking aside, when it comes to swords. The thing that I will say is that this was supposed to be a very exciting matchup, and it still certainly could be with the Grizzlies, playing as they are. But DaMichael, you got Ja out. You now have Tyus, Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., I believe Steven Adams as well. Basically, the Grizzlies are saying this: we can beat you with our bench. We can beat you with our bench. DaMichael, obviously, the big question, though, is that we talk about the Grizzlies sitting these guys out for soreness. You don't want to see the Grizzlies sit here and sit these guys out every single game. You want them to keep going with the good vibes. But what are your thoughts on the approach? What are your thoughts on now, with the Grizzlies really having nothing to play for the rest of the regular season, injury load management?
Shawn, you think they're saying we can beat you with our bench? I think they're putting up this white flag and they're saying surrender. Let's get some rest. I don't, unless the Suns and the Grizzlies had some type of backdoor agreement. Say, look, your bench versus our bench. This could get ugly, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, this is what we expected, right? We didn't know how to expect it. I thought it would be a little bit more strategic. Two guys sit out this game, two guys this game. I didn't foresee personally Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane being out in the same game because who's going to run the offense? I guess it's going to be Jared Culver. We've seen him run some point. You got Tyrell Terry, but I wrote, yeah, it's. But I tell you what, we get to see our evolve. We should get to see Yee's Pons. You talk about the Grizzlies being an exciting team that flies through the air. Wait till these fans get to really see Yee's Pons like we did at the collegiate level. So there's that to look forward to. But at the end of the day, this is what we expected. They're getting their rest, and there's this saying in the NBA: everyone's hurt at this time of the year. So, technically, maybe they can just come up any game of the season and just say, hey, Steven Adams has left calf soreness, or Desmond Bane has left ankle soreness, or Tyus Jones, we wrapped his two fingers up. Even though he played the entire second half, left hand soreness, he's out for this game. So, my favorite one, and your favorite one as well, is Jaren Jackson, getting the right thigh soreness, playing 25 minutes, and then saying, you know what? He's doubtful against the Suns again with right thigh soreness. So, Shawn, I think it's these are all important players, and we've talked on and on about how important these guys are. But I'm excited to see DeAnthony Melton, who's probably going to start. Kyle Anderson is probably going to be in the starting lineup. Brandon Clark, Dillon Brooks. At the end of that, this team is so deep. The starting lineup is still going to look kind of nice. I mean, I'm thinking, what do you think, Shawn? I'm going to tell you my starting five, and then I want to hear yours. I'm thinking DeAnthony Melton. We might get John Conchar, Zaire Williams, and then I'm going to say Kyle Anderson, Brandon Clark. That's the starting five I think we get in this game.
I think that you could sub out John Conchar for Dillon Brooks because Dillon Brooks he's playing.
I see. I forgot about Dillon Brooks.
No. It's no big deal with the point. But your point is this: it still is a competitive lineup. But I do kind of like the idea of just giving these players a day off. Listen, I know that you want to be strategic. I get that. Dillon himself said that he was looking for this 1 versus 2 matchup. But at the end of the day, you also want to sit here and make sure you take care of your players. Because one thing that has really helped out the Grizzlies this year is overall, despite Jaws stretches where he's been out, this Grizzlies team has stayed relatively healthy. And so you don't want to sit here and, have too much long of a layover to where it potentially throws some rust or potentially, increases injury likelihood when it comes to the rest of the playoffs. But all in all, the thing that I'm getting at is that this can still be an exciting game. We saw it last year at the end of the season. I believe the Grizzlies were playing the Sacramento Kings. Justice Winslow comes out of nowhere and scores 24 points. Could we see Killian Tilly sit here and get a triple-double? I don't know. I believe he's still
Yep. He's out, but point remains.
Well, that's the point, though. This is going to be such an exciting game. The injury list is going to lie, and Killian Tilly's actually going to play. I'm joking. But my point is that all in all, when it comes to the Grizzlies playing against the Suns, you're going to see plenty of opportunities for someone unexpected to stand out. And I'll tell you who I probably would love to see, all joking aside, stand out. I would love to see this be a game where Zaire Williams gets his 20 shots and is able to get the repetitions. That's the other thing that stands out. Young guys getting bigger opportunities and bigger roles.
Yeah. Man, I was just thinking about Zaire Williams. You talk about who's going to start. And not only he's going to get a chance to start, he's going to get a chance to play, possibly 30 minutes. The thing is, even when Zaire Williams was starting, we saw him play 22, 24 minutes. This is a big opportunity for someone like him. Brandon Clark, we've seen as well as he's played, he's, been at around, I believe this is a career low actually this season in minutes. Even though it's his most efficient season, it's a career low in minutes. So you get to see a lot of Brandon Clark. This is going to be interesting. Not to play, if I were to play negative Nancy in this, because my one concern, Shawn, with this is you want to keep these.
I don't want to hear you become doubting DaMichael. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
I'm not. This is not me doubting. This is just me throwing this out here just in case it happens, because we're gonna have to talk about it if it does happen. DeAnthony Melton is the hottest shooter in the NBA right now. There is a good chance DeAnthony Melton, with the way these roles are playing out, he's gonna play on the ball a lot in this game. Hopefully that doesn't throw him out of the rhythm that he's in. He has been, we've seen him thrive so much in these catch and shoot opportunities and things like that. It's going to be a different role for him. He's going to be, probably have the ball in his hands a lot more. I don't think it will, but that's something I'm personally going to pay attention to. I want to see, because if in this situation, like we've seen with Desmond Bane, but Desmond Bane had to work that into his game. When you play on the ball, the shots are different. There's less spot up shots. There's more you coming off of a screen, getting a good look. And Melton has knocked some of those down during the stretch. Like, don't get me wrong, but most of the shots we've seen, there have been a lot of spot up shots in transition and things like that. Those opportunities with this new role possibly we'll see in this game against the Suns probably will look a little different. We won't be able to tell until a couple of games from now how that affects this just blistering streak that he's on, but it's something I'm going to pay attention to.
Michael, you are a baseball fan. What is the one thing you don't do when a pitcher is throwing the no-hitter?
You don't mention it, Shawn. You don't mention it. And Shawn, to my defense, Shawn, I wrote a story in the commercial appeal that DeAnthony Melton is the hottest shooter in the league. And you know what
absolutely
he did?
Is.
And you know what he did the next game? He made 5 more 3-pointers. So in the most recent game. So he made me look good in that game. We'll see if it continues.
Hey, you've had the magic touch all year. The general manager of the Memphis Grizzlies acknowledged it on camera. I was there. I saw it. I'm not saying I agree with him, but I myself saw it. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. All in all joking aside, listen, this is the reason why we enjoy being able to co-host these shows. We get to have fun, not only because we covered the Grizzlies, but also the fact that, hey, the Grizzlies have bought themselves the opportunity to enjoy these type of games because they now, not that they don't have anything to play for, but they just have the opportunity to get healthy and get in the right mind. And obviously, we're going to see them do that against good competition, and it should be a fun game featuring the Grizzlies depth tonight. DaMichael, you got anything for us before we head out for the afternoon?
That's it. I'm excited to see this majority bench unit against the Suns. I joke that they will wave the white flag, but we've watched the Grizzlies too long to really think, that'll actually happen. I think this scrappy group that they're going to start, it's going to be fun just to watch that group play. Then a lot of other guys we don't get to see a lot will get some minutes. So I'm excited to see it.
Absolutely. We all should be, and we will certainly, me and DaMichael will both be there in person. Hopefully you will be there in person as well, or after you make Locked On Grizzlies your first watch or first listen of the day, make sure you check out the Grizzlies game later tonight against the Suns. For DaMichael Cole, my name's Shawn Coleman. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon here at Locked On Grizzlies.